Hey, what's up? It is the Man Fused Podcast. I am Kay Lee, your host, audio producer, sitting here with my co-host, Ben H.
What's up?
Mr. Real Estate. We have a guest in studio. His name is Jason Lyle. We're going to get with him in a second. Now, Jason has a very unique story. He entered the ministry at a pretty young age, became a minister or pastor. I'm not sure if I know the difference, if there is one. Went through some hard times and started something called AIR. It's Adventures in Recovery, and he specializes on helping people who are experiencing addiction, PTSD, a bad childhood, a black storm cloud that might be following you, anything that might be holding you back in life. So on this episode, we're going to offer you some solutions to maybe fixing those things. And let's not waste any more time. Jason Lyle, welcome to the show, man.
Welcome.
Okay, man. Thank you.
We are honored, and you are, as Ben just said, a distinguished gentleman.
Distinguished guest.
And a gentleman.
And a gentleman.
Yeah.
That's going a little far.
Yeah.
But I'll take it.
So before
A journeyman.
Before I even go into how Jason is in our studio right now, I was on his website, adventuresinrecovery.org.
Recoveryadventures.org.
Recoveryadventures.org. Sorry, I was thinking AIR.
You're good, man. That domain
Should you
name was
redo the
taken.
intro now?
Oh, no.
Because it's not even called AIR.
No, it is.
it is.
That's like that's like their product is AIR,
Got it.
but their website does not
Reflect
that because some asshole already
had
it.
AIR.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who would have thought of just buying AIR?
Adventures in Recovery is a cool name.
That's right, AIR. Yeah, but I was on his website and I saw his blog and I thought it said a lot. And I wanted to start off by reading this beautiful poem.
All right, well, hold on first, because it's all about getting fresh air. So is that the whole thing? You're like, AIR, we got to get air, and then Adventures in Recovery is an acronym for...
It is, and then
Air.
air is also the very essence of life.
Dang.
I mean, you just don't live
Swear
without
it's
air.
boom.
Yeah, if we're going to take it that deep, we're going that deep, all right?
I'm
You ready?
ready.
Okay. Into the wild. Simply being present in nature brings us closer to ourselves. There are frequent uncomfortable circumstances that require us to feel ourselves in ways conditioned homes prevent. Bug bites, rain, heat, cold, and many other circumstances teach us control is an illusion. Most people try hard to get away from discomfort, but Jason believes healing comes from discomfort. When I head out into nature, I am stepping into a primal world where I share something with my ancestors who lived thousands of years ago. With everything I need to survive on my back, I move from one location to another using the oldest method of transportation, walking. Hiking slows life down and forces humans to be focused on the simple art of staying alive. In wilderness, things such as cooking food, gathering water, and going to the bathroom are more difficult than at home. These tasks take me out of my comfort zone and place me where healing my soul can happen. Step 1 of the 12 steps, we admit we are powerless, that our habit has whipped us. There is no more powerless feeling than a spring thunderstorm during the night. You try desperately to sleep while at the same time hoping your tent is staked out properly and there are no deadfalls close by. But it doesn't have to be as extreme as the weather. Maybe it's just the fact water is a half-mile away from camp. In nature, you just have to accept what is. You can attempt to avoid obstacles, but in the end, nature wins. There is no way to control everything in nature. There is no faucet, power outlet, thermostat, just you and what you can carry. Addiction is a place of bondage. Nature is a place of freedom. I love that right there. Addiction tries to control what is out of control, and nature shows us what is in control. Addiction destroys lives. Nature shows that in every death, there is new life. Nature teaches us the power of not being in control and to embrace and love the things we can. We celebrate when we take a creek bath or find that perfect tent spot. Nature is a place of gratitude. Nature is where AIR takes participants to look deeply into themselves and work toward being free from addiction. Nature does the work. I like that, man.
I do too. That's
beautiful. It really is. I mean, the comparisons are just vivid. I mean, and it's so true because you are alive when you are in nature. And you are like, you're a nature guy. So I find it fascinating what you do and how you use nature, and it's just commonplace in nature. I mean, so how we met was one of my mentors, one of my employers, a guy that I work for, and a partner with the Man-Fuse podcast, Bert Weiss, was on an airplane. I forgot where he was going.
Ukraine with Poland.
Okay.
that's right.
That's when he was going to Poland. He's going to Poland, and Bert says it all the time when he gets on an airplane. He hates it when people talk to him, but apparently he sat down next to you, and you guys talked for a long time.
Yeah.
You were on your way to Africa.
Uganda. Yeah.
Uganda. How many times have you been to Uganda?
I have no idea, man, but quite a few. Yeah.
Wow. So you guys talked and you guys swapped numbers and have forged a relationship, and you guys have hung out and you guys kind of talk. And Bert had told Ben and I, he's like, man, you got to talk to Jason. He'd be great on your podcast. And I was like, just tell me a little bit about your story. I'm like, say no more. He sounds perfect. And so, like I said, once again, welcome. And those words you can find at recoveryadventures.org. So give us a little bit about your story, Jason. I find it fascinating. You're adopted. You were adopted.
Yep.
And how old were you when you were adopted?
21 days. I was in the foster care system for 21 days when my parents got me.
Well, that's kind of a blessing.
Yeah, in some ways, yeah.
Some people
Well, let me interrupt you there. Yeah, it is a blessing. I was a lucky kid. I mean, I got picked up by a great family and grew up in a great environment. But that's also a bit of the quandary at the same time, because people look at you and go, well, why do you feel like you have adoption issues? You know, you were adopted when you were a child, and we know now from science that, you know, the lower parts of the brain can remember things that the higher parts cannot. And so you end up with these difficult behaviors that nobody understands because they're hung up in your central nervous system or your autonomic nervous system. And so, yeah, being adopted young is a blessing, or whatever word we want to use, but it also carries with it a bit of a lens that you see the world by, that you really don't know why you do see the world by that lens.
That's an interesting take.
Yep.
Well, there's a separation anxiety too. I mean, for newborn babies, and certainly within the first few weeks,
Few hours, yeah.
within the first few hours, but for that 21-day period of time to not have your biological mother, which is what you needed as a baby, must have been devastating. I mean, in a way that's unexplainable, because as a newborn baby, you don't even know what to expect. You just know you want your mom.
You want that voice that you've been hearing for 9
You've been inside
months.
you've been growing inside of her body and so forth, and now you're all alone, effectively.
And what's really interesting about what we're talking about is you can take kids that were born prematurely and taken from their mom for the first 2 weeks of their life and put in a little tent, you know, in that sterile environment, and they display the same exact attributes as adoptees do, because it has everything to do with, and I'm working on a book right now, and the very first chapter starts talking about imprinting folds. I worked with horses for a little while, and when a horse is first born, you want to imprint it, and what that means is you want to put your hands on it so that you are a part of that foal's imprinting.
Right.
Because we know that the very first hours of life are very impressionable.
Yes.
And it's the same thing for babies. I mean,
And
it's just
birds,
impressionable.
too. Is that why, like, birds, like, if you touch, if, like, a human scent is touched, or a hatchling or whatever, like, they'll abandon it.
That's what I understand.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. But, yeah, that imprint, and I've never really thought about that. You hear about people coming up in the foster system, 5, 6, 7 years old, where on a conscious level, they might have witnessed some bad shit, which is why they are there.
Yeah.
And it's more obvious as to why maybe they are behaving the way they are behaving because of what they've witnessed. But very rarely, I've never thought about, okay, well, you were picked up, at that early mark and brought into a good home. So it's, I would have never thought, that lack of not having that initial bond, that imprint, would cause you to maybe later in life have some issues from it, or see the world differently from it. Issues might not be the right word.
No, it's the right word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the problem comes in, and I think that's what we're talking about. Those issues seem unwarranted.
Yeah.
People will go, well, you had a great family, man. Like
You
you're
were born with a silver spoon in your mouth.
Yeah. Both you guys, I'm assuming, grew up in a traditional home, both parents, or at least one parent. If you had the first 21 days of your life erased that you didn't know anything about, Don't know what time you're born. Don't know what hospital you're born in. Don't know what city you're born in. Don't know where you were for 21 days. It is a very untethered feeling. It's almost as if it separates you from reality.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I've never really thought about that, and that's pretty powerful. And I think that's a good thing to think about when you're dealing with somebody, because you never know what's somebody's complete story. You know, you just know that snippet that you're seeing him in, present time. And so you get into this foster family. You have a great home. Do you still are they still alive?
My mom died in 2020, and my dad is still alive. My dad is 84.
Wow.
84 years old, and just drove up to Blue Ridge last weekend to be in the mountains, and drove to Alpharetta. He lives south of Atlanta. He drove to Alpharetta Sunday night to have dinner with us, so he's still,
That's cool.
he's still driving. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I don't know if he should be or not,
Yeah.
but he's doing it.
So when you were growing up in this family, you had a close tie to the church?
Yes. Yeah, I grew up in church. I tell everybody I had a drug problem. I got drugged to church on Sunday morning, drugged
Yeah.
to church on Sunday night, drugged
Yeah.
to church on Wednesday night.
Right. And when I was listening to your story, because I was listening to you have a podcast as well, and it's called
Phreology, the Phreology podcast, yeah.
I was doing a little digging on you, wanted to, get some backstory. And it was something I heard actually on the way here to this recording that, you kind of always felt like something was left out of you. Mm-hmm. And you didn't spell it out exactly like what you were interested in, but at a young age, it almost seemed like you were looking at Playboy and Penthouse magazines or like smut magazines or something like that.
Yeah.
But and how old were you then?
8.
Nice. Okay, very cool. So, but that being in the church, different churches have different themes and beliefs on, what you'll go to hell for, what you shouldn't do, what you'll be, forgiven for, and what kind of church was it?
Baptist.
Okay. Yeah. So that's more of one of the stricter ones.
It's hardcore. I grew up in the Baptist arena as well. We're Episcopal. That was the whole idea. But I ended up in, Christian school, basically, which was Baptist. So I know all about Baptists.
Okay.
And, it's not that it's a bad community. It's just, it's pretty hardcore. You know, as a child, you are subjected to ideas of death and torture and what it's going to be like that are just a little extreme. And it honestly goes more into selling hell than heaven.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which is interesting,
So I'll give you a little example of that. So when I was 8 years old, I went down the aisle, got saved, and that was right after I discovered pornography.
Yeah.
And so I go down the aisle, get saved, and everybody's, they baptized me a couple weeks later, and it's like, oh, you're saved now, you're saved now. But these, all this starts to progress forward a little bit, and then I get to be 13, and I'm in youth group, right? Mm-hmm. And the youth minister one night starts talking about pornography and masturbation, and he starts talking about how God hates those things, and about how they're a curse, and how if those are the things that you do, then you're probably not really saved. And so now think about this, guys.
That's harsh,
I'm 13
dude.
now. Check this out. I call my pastor.
Yeah.
Now, our church is 1,000 people, 1,500 people. I don't know how many 13-year-olds they're calling their pastor for an appointment. But I call him. I'm like, hey, I need to talk to you. Go into his office. And I just spill my guts. Right.
I'm jerking off every day of the week. I can't fucking help it. I'm going to do it right here.
I like looking at naked girls.
That's pretty close.
Yeah.
And he says to me, don't worry about it, son. You're saved. You're covered by the blood of Jesus Christ. You don't have anything to worry about. And I swear to you, I walked out of his office, and I'm walking down the hallway thinking he does not know what he's talking about.
Right.
There's no way that's right.
Yeah.
Because I knew somehow inherently inside of me that what I was doing was not doing what it was designed to do. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I somehow knew inside of me that there was, not that, and don't hear me say that it's wrong. I don't think that's wrong at all. Matter of fact, I raised both my kids knowing that it's not. And looking back on it now, I did know that there was something in me that was missing. And I was trying to put that in that place. Looking back on that now, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? I mean, if you have a young child that's looking for his mother, does it not make sense that he's going back to his mother to try to find that place? And very specifically, the place that he came from, right? So it's a epigenetic kind of idea, but it's very much there, and it's very real.
Well, when I heard that snippet...
Can I raise this up a little bit? Just a pinch.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. Okay, perfect right there. Thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
Nope.
When I heard that, though, I'm like, okay, I did not grow up in the church. First off, my parents were, I guess, both sides before they got divorced. They were Jewish, but when I lived in New York, we had a Christmas tree. Every fucking year. Santa's fat ass came down the chimney. I didn't even know of anything that, had to do really with the Jewish religion. I really wasn't exposed to it. But that being said, I didn't grow up in any rigorous, like, oh, you're going to hell type thing. So when I hear you say that, and I'm like, that's all? I'm like, fuck. I mean, shit. I mean, as males, especially, I believe, as they start to hit prepubescence, if they decide at first they have cooties, and then before you know it, something switches, then it's like, oh, well, that chick's a little fine. Or, depending on how you're going, he's fine. I don't really know. Whatever.
Right.
You start to form what you're into, I would believe, what you find attractive about the same sex or the opposite sex. And looking at, naked girls on magazines and stuff, it just seems like the natural progression.
Well, because it is. It's not unnatural at all. But I think for me, it was more that what was natural was quickly becoming unnatural, and it carried on over into my teenage years. And,
Gotcha.
and when I mean unnatural, I don't mean like, bestiality and crazy shit like that.
What were you really into, Jason?
But it was more relational. When I was like 10 years old, I had a relationship with a 16-year-old. Nothing happened.
Right.
But she was like infatuated with me, and I was infatuated with her. And at first I was like, well, that's kind of cute. And then after about 2 months, you're like, okay, that's just weird.
Right.
What's going on there is just weird. But I was completely infatuated.
Of course.
And that carried on into high school, and girl after girl after girl after girl. And it just turned into a shit show after a while. So I think for me, it was less about the act of what was happening and probably more about the intention behind it. It wasn't just mindless actions. There was more to it.
What do you feel like the ultimate intention was?
To get back to my birth mother now, knowing what I know now.
And have you ever had the opportunity to meet your birth mother?
Looked for her in 2003, and she had died 1 year before.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah.
And so you had no information on your original father, your biological father?
Yeah, he had died too. So really strange. But she died with Huntington's disease. I don't know if you guys know what that is.
I've heard of it, and once you tell me, I'm going to be like, oh, yeah.
It's a version. It's presents like Parkinson's.
Okay.
But since my mother had it, I have a 50% chance of getting it. It's a half gene mutation, but I'm 52 now, so chances are it won't show up. But she died with it, her mother died with it, her uncle died with it, her grandparents died with it. Like, I mean, it was pretty bad.
That's scary.
So I find that out too, right? and I'm a pastor at the time. So dude, there's a whole story in there, and I know you're trying to.
No, this is what people really want to hear.
Okay.
Like, I don't want to say we're trying to be entertained by the drama of your life, but no one wants to hear a perfect story of how your existence has been this just fantasy with no, rough spots. That really how you share and how you help others is by your story and what you've overcome and what you've experienced, in my opinion.
So check this out. We went to a church, and we had friends that went to church there, and I had went into the ministry. And
how old were you at this point?
33.
33.
And I had started seminary, and I was in seminary, and we had some friends. We had planted a church as well. It was called the Open Range Church. We met in a barn on Tuesday nights to kind of keep it a little different, mixed up, We had some friends. They came over for dinner one night, and the wife says, so when was your birthday? And I kind of tell her back and forth, and she's in her 50s, I'm in my 30s. Well, I'm on my way to seminary the next day. Here I am. I'm thinking, well, I'm serving the Lord, and, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. My phone rings. It's her. We talk for an hour about horses, because I had a pretty good ride to seminary. Horses, and we were working with kids in children's homes at the time. It's kind of a theme of my life. And we get off the phone, hang up. So I'm at seminary, got to go, and I'm walking into the school, and my phone rings again. It's her, and she's just squalling, just crying uncontrollably. And I said, what's wrong? She said, I put a boy up for adoption, and I think you're him. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So exactly. And so I'm like, beside myself. And so in my mind at this time, I'm like, well, look, this is awesome. I decided I'm going to give my life to God, and God has sent my biological mother. And, I go to visit with her, and I write her this long letter, and I sit down with her, and we're chatting it. And the next day we go to breakfast. We're laughing about how we both put grits on our toast, just all these little things, right? And so for me, it was like, oh my God, this is really happening,
Yeah.
And that night she goes, hey, I've got an idea how we can find out for sure. She said, Georgia has the Georgia Adoption Reunion Registry. You go on and register, and then I'll go on and register. And then they'll just pair us up. And so I went home that night, got on the internet, it was dial-up at the time. And so I sit there and I upload my information, and I'm sitting there waiting by the phone. Nothing happens. And finally she calls. She goes, I found my son. He's in Ohio.
Oh.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Right. So in that moment, what's the thought process?
Dang.
Right. Well, God, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I mean, it was my thought process. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Like, you mean to tell me, man, like I'm 33. I sold my plumbing company to go into seminary and pastor a church, and this is the shit sandwich I get? Like, nah, man.
So did you take that as a sign that you needed to go find your biological mom?
And then she was dead. Right. The hits just keep on coming.
Well, what road are you trying to lead me down?
Yeah.
That's crazy. And this was another thing, because when listening to some audio about you, when you were having this feeling that something was missing, God left something out, but then you kind of double down and you go into the ministry, the same place that is making you feel like there's something left out of you. I would think some people's first instinct would be to get the fuck as far away from maybe the type of church you were in, or they're selling hell more than they are heaven. Anything you do outside of what they, deem as the way God wants you to be, you're going to have guilt about it.
Which is a tool that's used by the church to keep you loyal.
Well, and it's funny
guilt
too,
and
because
shame and
you're selling salvation, so you're selling
and
the
it's
answer.
also, and I'm not sure if I have what kind of church, but some of the most evil motherfuckers out there, hundreds of years ago or whatever, killing, mass murdering. I mean, how many people have died in the name of God? Doing God's work.
I mean, most every war, even current day, has a religious basis to it. When I was in Iraq for a couple years and got to talk to a lot of people there as an interrogator, and people would say, this is not a religious war. I say, it is a religious war because they think it is. So whether you think it's a religious war or not, if the people that you're fighting think it's a religious war, then it is, because they are living and dying, and so are you living and dying from their perspective upon
the belief system.
Inshallah, which means God's will. And so every conflict, everything, I mean, when you look back at the history of how the Vatican was created and how the Vatican Bank was created, a lot of things happened in the 1500s, man, that really changed the course of religion, changed the course of history, and changed the course of our idea about God. And, we talk about it a lot with Matt, how the world changed from a 432 hertz to 430 hertz frequency.
We were talking about old ancient structures, and
because
we were very fascinated by ancient aliens and a lot of that stuff. And
when we look at ancient structures like ancient churches, for example, that were built prior to the 1500s, most of them are in Europe, but we even see some in America, which is hard to explain because in 1492, apparently Columbus sailed the ocean blue. But we can find structures in our current day cities that seem to predate that and seem to be designed and built potentially by the same architect and with similar materials as a lot of the structures that we find in Europe. But nonetheless, the windows on these cathedrals, and they have these elaborate windows, which if you put a sound wave and water under a microscope and you play the frequency of the organ that's inside the church, you can see that the sound frequency creates a pattern in the water which matches the
that's pretty cool.
window on the church. I'll show you some of that when we get off. It's very, very interesting.
That's pretty cool.
And a gentleman we had on a week or two ago knew a lot about it because he does a lot of research into that kind of thing, and so do I. But a lot changed in the 1500s, and this had a lot to do with the Roman Empire. And how they changed things and how they removed many books, including the Book of Enoch, which is a very important book, from the Bible, and that's where we get the New Testament from, or not the New Testament, but the King James version, right? Anyway, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so the church, tries to keep you in this one line.
Well, look at the witch trials. I mean,
Sure.
I mean, who the hell burns a beautiful woman alive? I mean, what kind of thing is that to even watch? We come from a brutal, brutal world.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, and religion a lot of it has been done in the name of religion.
Exactly. In the name of God or in the name of religion.
I mean, our money has it. I mean, like everything is painted with a brush of religion.
It really is.
Like the brush of religion. And so you growing up in that, I didn't. Ben, I know you said you went to the church and you used to go. Being in that line and then going into that business.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of an answer to your question. If you think about it long enough, I knew something was missing in me. I'm pretty open about that, or I felt like something was missing in me. But somehow from a very early age, I knew that spirituality was real. I read the Bible through for the first time when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
So when I sat in church when I was a child, I listened, I paid attention. I served the church. I mean, I sang in choir, I went to youth group. I did everything. Boy Scouts, RAs, the whole thing. Something in me knew that the spiritual path was the right path, and I still believe that to this day. But going to seminary, to be fair, and I don't know that at the time I would have said, oh, this is why I'm going. I thought, okay, well, surely these guys have the answers. And there's all kind of stories I could tell you about, how divine inspiration came into my life. I mean, just crazy phone calls I would get out of nowhere that I shouldn't have gotten. Just things that I know for a fact this is what I'm supposed to be doing in my life, right? I go to seminary thinking, okay, well, here's going to be some answers. And so I remember going, I'm like, hey, look, I'm cool with your view on the Bible. I'm cool with your view on the church. I'm cool with all that. Just explain to me why. Just let's talk this out. Give me some intellectual information, right? I need to know this. And I remember I was about 2 semesters in, and I was sitting in hermeneutics class, and hermeneutics is the study of the Bible. And the professor says, if the Apostle Paul were alive, he couldn't pass my class. And I remember when I was walking out the door, I thought, son of a bitch, they don't know either. Like, they don't know. And then I realized something else, brother. 126 hours is how many hours my degree was.
Right.
And 1 hour was personal spiritual disciplines. 1.
Wow.
So I knew without a shadow I'm like, man, this can't be right either. And so in this process, I start traveling to Uganda and seeing the rest of the world. I went to India. I went to Germany. I went to Greece. I mean, I spent time on Mount Athos with the monks in Greece. I mean, I've done all kind of things, right? So I knew the essence of spirituality was real.
Right.
I just knew that my medium for looking at that was not. And so I'm trying to dismantle that. And even in church, you can go back. I mean, my sermons are still online. I can go back from 2014, 15 and talking about, the kingdom of God is here right now, not some far off other place. And you can create heaven or hell for yourself here right now. So that's very controversial in the evangelical world to even say those things, right? So I was already on a path of saying, hey, and that's why we had church in a barn. It's like, I don't want to be religious. I don't want to be religious. I want to be real. That's what I want to be, and I want to be alive. And I knew that involves spirituality, and we can get to this, later, but that's where yoga came in. That's where nature came in. I've always I remember being 5 years old and laying out in the woods for hours by myself. I've loved the woods and always have. It's always been a part of my life.
Yeah, Ben's a big outdoors, and we've had many conversations about, raising our kids and the importance of being in the outdoors, and being outside and not, behind your phone or, and being unplugged. And
because if you read what I read, here's the thing. We are not going outdoors. We are outdoors.
Right.
We are made up of the same shit that it's made out. We are not made out of sheetrock and wood. We're not made out of this stuff. We are made out of the same thing that nature's made out of. So when we enter nature, we're not going into some foreign something. We're actually going into what we're made to be in.
Going home.
Going home. I take a group of guys elk hunting every year in September. We go to Colorado, hiking to the backcountry.
Cool.
We're looking at 13,000 foot peaks all over. Come on.
Can I go this year?
No, well,
I really want to go.
Not to get you off course, but Jason, tell Ben, because you and I have been in communication. You've been gone for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I just got home.
Explain to Ben what you've been doing, because it's pretty epic.
Yeah, we left Atlanta, went to Bentonville, Arkansas, mountain bike for 2 days, went from Bentonville to Durango, Colorado, mountain bike for 2 days, went from Bentonville to Zion National Forest and climbed for 2 days, and then we ended up in Yosemite National Park, and we climbed in Yosemite.
Where was I? I should be there. These are the kind of things that I want to do.
He was sending me, and I told him, but when we spoke on the phone, and we were like, all right, you're going to be back at this point, I said, feel free to send me photos as you progress. And he did. He sent me these gangster, just beautiful photos of the shit he was doing. I was like, fuck. was like,
Yeah, I
beautiful.
mean, that's incredible.
I'm here in Atlanta.
No, it's really incredible too. I mean, because as we look more into, let's say, the Earth, right, and space and the atmosphere and these kinds of things, you know, we realize how it was made specifically for us. And it's of supreme design. And for me personally, I can say that about 5 years ago, I was having a very difficult time. And I still have a tough time, but I mean, it was really brutal. And so I sought out someone who, you know, was doing like spiritual ceremonies and things of this nature, not religious, but spiritual. Yeah. And it was out in the middle of the woods, in the jungle, you know, and I went down there for a week and it just changed my whole perspective on everything. It completely opened my mind. And as Chris alluded to, I've always been into getting out into nature. I agree with everything that you said. And I think that there's a big difference between religion and spirituality. And I noticed that you keep saying spiritually and spirituality and things like that over religion, because you can have religion, but all this killing and all this war and all this everything, it's all done in the name of religion. So then what is religion? Because certainly it wasn't what the God that I pray to intended.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
I feel like religion is spirituality with money attached to it.
Just told
It's
someone
man's
yesterday.
incarnation.
Right.
I just told someone yesterday, as soon as you monetize spirits, that's the reason why at Ventures in Recovery, nobody's ever paid for a trip. That we're all donation based. If people want to give, they can give, and we fulfill our budget every year. But not a single guy that goes on these trips pay, because when you monetize somebody's spiritual life, you remove the essence of what the spiritual life is supposed to be. Even in Christianity, we follow a man that they call Jesus. Jesus goes into the temple and cleans the temple out because they're making money off of spirituality. And so your point is, if religion is what it is a group of people who come together to live life together, and that's a beautiful thing. That community is a beautiful thing. I believe in the Christian community. I can't think of a single catastrophe that happened in my life that the church was not present and loved on me and my family. The church has been present for every bad thing that's happened in my life. But the second that you say, hey, and by the way, if you really love the Lord, you tithe.
Right.
If you really love the Lord, you serve the church. If you really love the Lord, that's where it gets, you have this man who gets a paycheck based off of everybody else's desire to attach to God. And that's just bullshit.
It's a business.
Yeah, so call it, that's one thing I love about a couple, I won't call the names, but bigger churches around this area, they're very upfront by saying, hey, we're a business.
Right.
That's what we're doing.
If you're talking about Andy Stanley, I love him.
Yeah, man, and he's very honest about it.
Yeah, and I feel like when he does ask for, you know, like, what do you say?
Offering, tithing, giving.
Yeah, but he just straight asked, hey, if you can make a donation, great. This is what we're trying to do.
We're trying to raise $7 million.
So we could buy...
Yeah, I mean, he does that.
No, he did.
He does. He's
man.
like, we need $7 million.
And then when they needed more, he was like, the ground in Buckhead is very costly.
Right.
And it is.
It was $30 million. You remember that pitch? Were we in there together?
Yes, we were.
Yeah, we were there together,
We were
and Andy
like-
Stanley rolled
I was like hitting my pockets.
how
like,
they
I don't
needed
got nothing,
$32
dude.
million or something like that for the Buckhead Church.
You
Well,
know
they
what?
raised it.
But I think what they do for the area, and I grew up in like it was a Jewish, but not really Jewish. You know, we were kind of practiced the Christmas and all that stuff. But I love Andy Stanley's church. I love his messages. I love him as a communicator, and I love how non-judgmental I don't know if they've always been this way, and if his dad was kind of like this, but it's just like everybody's welcome. If you don't want to turn your life over to Jesus Christ, at least sit for the message and hopefully be a better person is what I get out of it.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
Can I shift gears just a second?
sure.
Okay, because I know I might have a timeline or whatever.
No,
but
whatever.
when I was working in wilderness therapy, and in wilderness therapy as a field guide, I would spend 8 days in the woods with a group of kids, and then I would be 6 days at home, then 8 days in the woods and 6 days at home. So I was living out in the woods with these kids, and these kids were, they were rough. They were on a rough go of it. They're, 15, 16 years old, and I just recognized over half of them were represented by the adoption community.
Interesting.
And I'm like, that is very interesting, right?
What do you mean by that?
They have been adopted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Over
Sorry.
half
Gotcha.
of them. Probably better than half. And most of them internationally, right? Some Russians and some maybe Costa Rica. I don't want to quote the countries, but South America. And so one night we come in and my life was just a wreck, man. I mean, just a wreck. I was no longer at the church, obviously. And, from all my troubles with that. And this name Rob Gent comes walking in. And if you listen to my podcast, you may have heard this story. And he starts talking about attachment attachment trauma and pre-verbal trauma. And I'm sitting there listening to this guy. I'm like, man, this guy's reading my mail. And so he goes, he says, are any of you guys adopted? And I raised my hand, and he said, I want to ask you something. He said, if I told you I love you, I care for you, and I want what's best for you, what's the first word that comes to your mind? And I said, bullshit. And he said, exactly. He said, and then he explained to me, he said, that is because when you experience any sort of rejection, your prefrontal cortex disconnects from your lower brain. And he said, you can't be rational, because he's explaining to us why the kids in the field are irrational. He said, when you have pre-verbal trauma, anything around rejection, your rational brain can't compute it. It just goes offline because, to your point, when we're that little, all we have is an amygdala and a brainstem. That's all we have.
Right.
We have fight, flight, freeze.
That's it.
That's all we have. We don't have rational brain at all.
Right.
So that's where the trauma sticks. So I call this guy. I'm like, man, like you read my mail. You know, I shared my whole life with him. And he goes, oh, first of all, you need to know. He said, you're not a bad person, man. You're a great person. I mean, I told him everything, right? The good, bad, ugly, and it was ugly.
Yeah.
And he said, let me give you some tools. And he said, I want you to get in ice cold water. And he said,
You're like, what the fuck?
He said, have you ever heard of Wim Hof? I'm like, yeah. He said, I want you to get in ice cold water. He said, I want you to do some holotropic breathing. He said, follow Wim Hof. He said, I want you to do some meditation. And he said, I want you to do some yoga. And he explained to me about regulating my central nervous system. That was October 19th of 2021. I took my first ice bath, and it was not immediate, but it was almost immediate, to where the transformation, my wife could come on here and even tell you, just that spiritual life that I had looked for my entire life. I think it was Rumi who said, I searched for God in the synagogues and churches and found God in the ultimate place, and that's me. And he also said, I searched for myself and found only God, and I searched for God and found only myself, right? So it's like
Wow.
this inner thing that I found, and that's where Adventures in Recovery birthed out of. So I went and did my
Awesome.
200-hour yoga cert and did my Wim Hof certification. And so, yeah, there's an ice bath sitting on my back porch. I was in it this morning.
That's awesome, man.
And we both did a program called 75 Hard.
Yeah.
And then phase 2 of that program, after you complete it, whenever you decide to do it, was you needed to, cold water therapy was part of the deal on a daily basis. I would imagine, if hearing your story and hearing you say that if you had a problem with substance abuse and addiction, whether it be alcohol or drugs or whatever, that cold water could almost probably be the relief and the addiction. Like, your day probably isn't as good if you don't dip in that.
Yeah, here's kind of what happens, right? So you were talking a minute ago about going to the jungle, right? And the spiritual ceremonies there. What those spiritual ceremonies do is give you access to part of your brain you don't normally have access.
Yes.
That's called your pineal gland, right?
Yes,
it's the
that's
very
correct.
tiny gland that's at the very end of your brain stem.
Yes.
And if you've ever watched any YouTube stuff, it's called the spirit molecule. You can find that
Dimethyltryptamine.
dimethyltryptamine, that's
Yes.
right. And it's produced in that area of your brain. So here's the thing.
Fires when we're born and when we die.
That's right. So when you're born and you have pre-verbal trauma, it's stuck in that pineal gland, and it's stuck in the limbic system. And so the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, think of them as the gas and the brake, fight or flight, freeze and fall, right? There's up and down, up and down. And so when you go to these ceremonies that you're talking about, you access into that very spirit center of who you are as a human.
Yes.
And cold water over and over and over. So when I go into cold water, my rational brain goes offline, my irrational brain comes online, and all it says is, get out of here. What are you doing? But under my own fruition, I go, no. I'm going to sit here.
That's right.
I'm going to stay here with this. And I close that prefrontal cortex back down over and over and over and over. It's just like going to the gym. It's
You're
just like
training
going
it.
running. You're just training it.
Now
Until
you're
eventually-
winning a negotiation.
Now you're not even in negotiation anymore
Yeah.
because the lower brain doesn't need to negotiate.
Yeah.
That's why it works for PTSD as well. I'm assuming that's, you talked about being Iraq interrogation, so I'm assuming that's part of what that is. That's why it works. All that trauma sticks in your autonomic nervous system. So when people will say, God, I act this way and I don't know why. So it's because it's stuck in your autonomic nervous system. It happens automatically.
It takes a long time too, man. And I mean, it's not something that just, well, for me anyways, that, it's just solved.
No.
It's like, now I have tools that I can use, but it's up to me to use the tools.
That's right.
And, you get stuck back in that vicious cycle where, for me, I haven't gotten in cold water in probably 2 weeks now. And you're reminding me right now that I haven't.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why have I not gotten in? How has it been 2-3 weeks and I haven't even gotten in cold water?
Yeah.
But you don't realize it. And then you get back into those nasty cycles and those areas of your mind open back up, and its consistency is so important. you
Well, it's
know?
usually when you have addictive behavior, right? You're taking an internal problem and you want to bring an external solution.
Right.
Right. So that could be your cell phone, that could be methamphetamine, that could be heroin, that could be alcohol, that could be food, that could be a person, that could be sex, that could be whatever the 9 million things different are. The root is the same. I'm trying to take something external and fix an internal problem. But this is where spirituality comes in. It's not an external solution, it is an internal solution. And
Yes.
that internal solution, this drives people nuts when I say this, that I work with, is choice. You just said it. Choice. I have to choose to get my ass up at 5:30 a.m., go to
Yes.
my mat. I do poses for 20 minutes. I meditate for 20 minutes. I breathe. I do 3 rounds of breathing. I go straight upstairs into the ice bath. I flop over in that thing. Doesn't matter if I've had to chip ice off the top of it before to get in. I get in. I was in Yosemite. I got in the river. My buddy Drew has a picture. There's snow melt 100 yards away.
And they're like, "You're crazy." It's like, no.
No, I'm not. I'm far
not.
from crazy.
Yeah.
You fuckers are crazy
You're
for sitting up
crazy.
there on the bank,
Exactly.
right? I'm down here where you're
Yeah.
getting insane,
That's
right?
right.
And that moment of choice creates the ability to go, and now when that shit fires off inside of me, for you, PTSD, for me, pre-verbal trauma, for other people, it could be molestation, it could be 9 million things. You're able to go, oh, wait a minute, I can catch that, capture it, and bring it back down. There's a beautiful verse that Jesus, I think it's Jesus, says this. No, it's not Jesus, it's Paul. Says, take every thought captive and make it obedient. Then Paul also says, the church looks over this. It's crazy. Paul also says, don't be conformed any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by renewing of your mind.
Yes.
Nicodemus comes to Jesus in the middle of the night and starts asking him questions, and Jesus goes, listen, quit asking me all that. If you really want to see the kingdom of God, you got to be born again. Well, the church turned that into something you can sell.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
if you want to get saved, come to church. Jesus does not mean anything like that. And anybody wants to debate that, I'll debate it. He means you need to walk into every moment of your life as if you've never seen it before.
Yes.
And the only way you can do that is through meditation, through nervous system work. And Jesus taught that, very clearly taught that.
It's so
Plant
interesting.
medicine too. I mean, mushrooms are very effective. Like
Very
psilocybin is very effective at that fresh look. Whether it's a micro or a macro dose, it can provide that space.
Lights
as
up
well.
the pineal gland. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And it's an amazing experience to see your life through fresh eyes, because all of a sudden you realize how beautiful you are,
Removes
and
the
how
ego.
beautiful your family is, and how beautiful and divine everything currently is. And it's almost like a song, where your life is almost like this beautiful song or this beautiful tapestry, and you're literally in the middle of the song. And it's just like, oh my gosh, wow. And so then all of a sudden it creates this level of gratitude and appreciation. And I remember those moments. I remember all those moments. They're recorded, and I go back to those places whenever I need to, but it's also fleeting because we deal with the stimulus on a consistent basis, and we don't know what to believe. You know, is it the church? Is it the Bible? Is it Jesus? Was Jesus even a real person? I mean, all these things which, oh, you can't say that. Okay, well, it's just a question. You know what I mean? Like, we don't really know.
Right.
I mean, you don't know anything that you haven't seen,
Right.
right? So
Absolutely.
we have written history. That's why I love architecture so much, because architecture tells a story that written history does not tell.
Right.
And it's real, and it was built, and it's still there. And we can look at it and go, what is that?
Yeah. What were they thinking when they
Because
built that?
when I read history about when that thing was built, it doesn't say anything about the level of sophistication that structure requires.
Yeah.
Because we don't even build like that now. I don't even know if we can. We probably can, but we don't.
We don't, right?
Well, I mean, some things, as we discussed in last week's episode with Matthew LaCroix, is these ancient structures. Like, we don't have the technology to move 100,000-ton blocks. We don't
Right.
even have the machinery. So how the fuck were they doing
Yeah.
it? What did they know that we don't? And we're supposedly the most advanced civilization? Bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, there's, maybe in some capacity, but not others.
And what is the sky, and what is the earth, and what are the stars, and what is the sun? I mean, everything that we know that we're taught in school, they don't teach us that this is a theory.
Right.
This is the best theory that we have. This is the best theory that
This
we've
is the
got.
one we're running with.
This is the one we're running with. There's a lot of different options here, but you're being taught the one that we agree on most.
Yeah, that's mainstream.
We're not taught that. We're taught this is a fact. fact.
It's true.
And anybody that says anything other than this is lying. And it's through education, and it's through religion, and it's through all these different mediums where there are ultimately power structures.
And dollar bills.
You know?
A lot of dollar bills.
But in the woods, in nature, it's God. It's only what exists. It's what's real. All that stuff isn't even real. Maybe it is. I mean, what is it?
Yeah.
We don't even know what it is. But to your point, in nature, man, that's 100% truth. There's no lies out there.
And what you're talking
know?
about is symbiosis, right? So when you were talking about psilocybin a minute ago, it's the reason why therapy, psilocybin, some of those other things work, but there's also work to go in after because you
Yes.
got to carry that forward, right?
Yes.
Well, it's a symbiotic relationship, and symbiosis simply means everything's connected.
Yes.
There's nothing unconnected. So we look at the sun, we go, that's the sun, but the sun is actually me and I'm actually it. We look
Yes.
at the sky, we go, that's the sky, but it's actually all part of what we are.
That's right.
So when we interweave ourselves into nature and we leave our cell phone in the truck, that's funny. I take guys out on a trip. That's the first thing we know. Are we going to have service? Like, no, you're not going to have service by design, right? But when we do that, we start going, wait a minute, man, I'm pretty small in the grand scheme of things.
That's right.
Oh yeah, it's funny you said so. Yeah, I just pictured when you said that. Oh, are we gonna have service? You take their cell phone and bash it with a hammer, like right there. Like if you had to depict that in a movie or something, that's exactly what your character would do.
Or a
Would just-
commercial, you know?
Yeah, hand me your cell phone. Let me switch to analog, and then just bash it into a million pieces and hand it back to him.
You could have like a Hillary Clinton mask on.
I
I'm
mean,
just
what-
kidding.
You know, it's funny you say that because I got the opportunity, and I guess you could say I had some technology with me, but I had the opportunity to go on this extreme adventure where I met 6-7 dudes in Juneau, Alaska. Mm-hmm. We suited up and we hopped on these modified jet skis, and we went from Juneau, Alaska, 550 miles to Prince Rupert, British Columbia in 5 days. Now, we ported every day and we stayed at a hotel, but being on that jet ski that close, I mean, you can't get closer to the water than that jet ski.
That's
and,
right.
and traveling, I mean, we had humpback whales just coming up all around us. I mean, killer whales. I mean, they could take us out in any second. I'm almost idling, trying not to be on the back of one of these humpback whales, going through these ice fields into the LeConte Glacier. And just, I mean, it was as close to God as I've ever, like spiritually, I've ever felt in my life. I mean, granted, we did have some technology. We had the ability to, had an engine that take us, but still, I mean, being amongst those mountains and you're on the water, I mean, you are subject. I mean, the jet ski might provide you the ability to go faster, but you still could be taken out at any moment. It's,
Man, listen, you take a guy out to Collegiate Peaks Wilderness area, you put his pack on his back, you hike him in Colorado, 5 or 6 miles, you're sitting by a glacier lake, you're looking up at 13-foot peaks. They got a little bit of snow on top of them. The high meadows are green, and all of a sudden you hear a bull elk bugle from about 200 yards off. If that does not bring chills and tears to somebody's face, they're just not alive.
I want to go.
It's just this immersed ability to be. I mean, when we came through the.
Is that threatening? I'm sorry for my ignorance.
No,
Or is
it's
that-
just amazing.
Or is that in a beautiful sound?
It's just all of a sudden you're just like,
What is that, man? It sounds like something from another planet.
Sounds like a fucking dinosaur. Like that.
Kinda.
Sound, like.
Yeah.
it's just a real moment. You know what I mean? You're just
Well,
like,
I don't know if should I
just
be
like-
scared?
yeah, you're a little scared. You're a little excited. You feel like a kid again.
Man, listen,
life looks brand new. With that, life's brand new.
Yeah.
Right out of the package.
Really?
You know what I
It
mean?
sounds amazing.
Everything's brand new. You love your wife more. You love your house more. You love your kids
that
more.
instant.
You love your problems more.
we
All
walked,
in that same moment.
we walked up on a elk carcass a few years ago, and I had 2 guys with me, and we walked into the woods, and I'm looking at this thing laying on his side, and I could see the antlers sticking up on one side. I'm like, that elk is either bedded down or he's dead. So I pull up my binoculars, I look, and he's been disemboweled. I'm like, oh, he's dead. And so we walk in, and I turn, I look at the guys who were with me. I said, watch out for bears, boys. I no more got it out of my mouth, and they started just coming down out of the trees, and there was bear shit everywhere with blueberries in it. And I'm like, oh, that's not good. And I turn and look, and my buddy is already gone, and he's the one with the gun. He's just running. Franklin,
gosh.
if you're listening to
You're
this, you know
seeing
what I'm talking.
bears come down
Oh, yeah, they're in the trees, man. They're coming down.
And he's the guy with the gun?
He's the guy with the gun. They just left me in there, which bears don't really bother me hardly at all. But I just remember that moment of going, I am so tiny, man. Like
Yeah.
I am. I walked up on a mama moose and her calf last year.
Right.
And all I had in my hand was a bugle, which is kind of like a wiffle ball bat. And my buddies are behind me, and I just keep walking toward her like, what are you doing? I'm like, what? Either she's got to move or we do. So I start beating this bugle tube on my leg and she walks off. But those moments, man, you just realize, like, there's nothing alpha about me. She could have called over and just mutilated me. I can't run from her. I can't do anything. She just killed me. But, but at the same time, I want to be close to that.
That's right.
I don't want to run from that. I want to be up on that, man.
So if you decided to run, would it have probably chased you?
An elk or a moose?
Yeah.
No, huh?
No, okay. No. But you stood your ground. You're like, you know what? I think I can get this thing to move.
Yeah, I mean, it really wasn't even any thought going into it. It's just like being captivated into that moment.
They're like, man, we're with Crocodile Dundee right now.
No, I'm not gonna wrestle him.
I think have you seen that movie? He's Crocodile Dundee. Like, holy shit.
Bears, elk.
Yeah, that's right. Is he Bear Grylls? Are we out here with Bear Grylls?
Yeah.
It's just a really cool thing.
It really is.
A thunderstorm in the spring. I said that in the writing. We just came back from a trip from Adventures in Recovery back in May. And we woke up one morning and it's just, I mean, guys, only as Georgia can do, thunder and lightning, and it struck right down the valley. And I'm up under the tarp doing yoga, just laughing, man.
I
I'm
love
like,
that.
Like, what am I going to do? I'm going to run?
Right.
Like, but in that moment, you just feel this power.
Oh, it's so cool.
You're like, what am I? What am I? I'm like a flea on a German Shepherd's back. I can be flicked off at any moment, and it just makes you so alive, man. It's that illusion of control that nature takes away from you.
There's no security of any
The
kind.
only control we have in our entire lives, brothers, is our choices. That's it. Other than that, we don't have any.
Until you can't make the choice anymore because it's taken away from you. The
that's
ability
still a choice.
to do so.
That's still a choice, though, how you respond to it. You read a book by a guy named Abraham Heschel. He was, nope, that's not the right name. I'll think of it in a minute.
Danielle Steele?
No, he was in a Nazi concentration camp, and he talks about choosing to be happy, choosing to love his oppressors, choosing to not let that be what defined him was being, and he lived through it.
Victor
Frankl. Yeah,
Yes,
Man's
Viktor
Search for
Frankl.
Meaning.
Yes.
Yeah, it's an awesome book.
Yeah,
He's
it's
an
amazing.
guy.
Yeah.
So how often do you do these retreats, adventures? How often are you taking people out into the wilderness and into nature?
So we did 4 this spring. We did 2 for guys in recovery, 1 for dads who had lost teenage sons to death. And then we have 1 leaving for guys in recovery tomorrow morning, actually. They'll meet me at the trailhead and we're headed out. Then we'll take off the summer. We really don't do a whole lot over the summer because
It's too hot. Yeah. So, and how many people will be with you?
6.
6. Is that always the number? Typically, you go for 6.
If we get that many to sign up, yes. Sometimes we have people drop
and
over.
plug the website again.
recoveryadventures.org.
So, God, that whole thing with dads who lost their is it son or daughter?
You know, man, but listen, hey, we had a dad that went, and I won't call his name, but he knows who he is, and he'll listen to this. He was on the verge of divorce. He was already dividing assets. His son was killed in a UTV accident, flipped it over, killed him instantly, 16 years old, whole wife in front of him. They came up on the scene expecting to see a helicopter hauling him out. Instead, they saw a sheet, and the mama wanted to see it, and so they pulled the sheet back, and so there's just all this trauma. So we go on a trip, and I put him in the cold water. And I mean, I still have a text message from him. He's like, it changed my life. So I came home and I want to work on my marriage now. I have a renewed, but we just worked on his nervous system, right? You don't get that kind of trauma that doesn't stick in your nervous system because your rational brain wants to make sense of it, and it can't because there's no sense to be made.
Right.
But when it can, it sends it to your nervous system, which then goes, and then it goes right back up to your rational brain.
It fucked you up.
Yeah. And so, man, he's doing his practices. He's doing cold showers, which work just as well. For those of y'all listening, he does yoga, he does his breathing, and it's really transformed his life.
That's crazy.
It's amazing.
I mean, that's cold. I mean, cold water seems to be the answer.
It's big, man, because what it makes you do, I mean, there's a whole scientific aspect to it, which we discussed, but really what it makes you do is it puts you in a position where you're incredibly uncomfortable and you just have to remind yourself that you're okay and you have to stay still. every part of you wants to get out of that water, but it shows you that you can decide whether to get out or not.
Yeah.
You know, and then the cold itself has health benefits and benefits on your mind as well. But there's that decision point where you're deciding to stay in the water. It's your decision, 100%. And once you do, you realize that not only am I okay, I feel better.
I can do this.
As a result of this choice to stay.
Yeah,
it's crazy, man.
It's pretty amazing.
And it doesn't just have to be cold, extreme heat. That's why people get runner's high. You know, you take off running, you're just concentrated on your breath, and you're enduring these hours of pounding the pavement. It all creates this same dynamic. It just kind of comes down to intention, right? If I'm intentionally doing something that makes me suffer, but then finding peace in and of myself during that suffering, then somehow, just like encountering bears or encountering a moose or rock climbing up the side of the wall, when I get in this position to where everything in me wants nothing more than to get out of there, but yet I go, no, I kind of love this. I kind of want to stay right here.
Right. Well, that's where life is in the discomfort. And that's where it's courage, like being scared, but just I'm doing it anyway, right? Like it's...
Well, it's interesting, though, that
something on the other side.
Evil things or bad things, things that are destructive, like addiction, have the same allure to them. It's just that the result is different, right? I mean, having that extra drink or watching that pornographic film or going and seeing that person that you know you shouldn't go and see, it has that same kind of allure of, like you're saying, kind of these situations, I want to get out of this situation. It's like, you know you shouldn't go do that, but something within you is like, nah, I'm going to go do it anyways. But it's, like you said, intention and result. Right? You know the result of that's going to not be good for you. So can you make the decision not to go? Whereas in this case, you know the result is likely going to be something beneficial to you, but it's hard. You know, David Goggins talks a lot about this.
I love that guy.
Yeah,
he's a beast.
This is where he lives. He's made a decision to be as often as possible in a state of suffering because of how beneficial he feels that it is for his life.
Have you read any of his books?
I am pretty familiar with him. But I love everything about him, but he's just a little too hard on himself. You know, we have to love ourselves, man. And when I go to get in that cold water, it's not because you son of a bitch get in that water, you piece of shit. I don't sit there and look at the ice tub and go, I don't want to go, but I just go get in because I love myself, right? And if I love myself, then that's where my intention starts. Then I don't go see the person I just shouldn't be going to see. I don't shoot the heroin in my arm. I don't overindulge in alcohol because I'm going, no, I love myself. I don't eat the excessive sweet because I've found a way to love myself. Most addicts hate ourselves, and the church teaches us how to hate ourselves because they teach us we're born with original sin, which is bullshit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And bullshit is a theological term in my word. It's bullshit. We're not born pieces of shit. We're born perfect.
That's right.
Perfect essence of who God wants us to be. And that God that wants us to be, that is inside of every single person. If I had to even say, when somebody says, where is God? It's in you. It's in me. It's in everything. God's not another place in some, golden streets and pearly gates. God is in us.
He's in DMT. That's a fact.
Right? It's fascinating, man. That is fascinating. I mean, like, how do you feel? I guess there's probably not a better feeling than taking an ex-military guy or a dad. I mean, and the feedback you get. Does it change on a percentage basis? Does it change everyone's life? Is it like cut and dry, like your life's changed? But it takes work. It takes continued work. Like,
I would say it, I was talking to...
That might be a kind of a vague, hard question to answer, and but...
It's a great question, actually. I was talking to my yoga teacher about 2 weeks ago, and she said, she talks about your dharma. And I don't know if you guys know what dharma is, but dharma is your purpose in the yoga tradition.
Is that like an Indian? I thought I've heard that.
In Sanskrit. And so my dharma is to be a teacher. It has been. It's been my whole life. I just didn't know it. I was moving in that direction. And so I'm a teacher without attachment to the outcomes of other people's lives. So I teach without any expectation, right? So when I teach somebody, and whether it's, we're walking down the trail and I'm showing them, what long broadleaf plantain looks like, or a pipsissewa, or this is a sourwood tree, you can chew on the leaves, or, this is a chicken of the woods mushroom, or this is a chanterelle. Or if I'm teaching them how to do breath work, or if I'm putting them in cold water and explaining the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, I'm giving them information that has worked for me, and what they do with it, I have no control over. Most teachers want to control the outcomes. I do not. I just give it to them and they do. And what I have found is if you brought, I don't know how many people we've taken out in the woods. Let's say I've taken 50. And if you brought all 50 of them in here, you might find 2 that would say, yeah, my life wasn't really changed by that. The other 48, and we've got video of it all. They're like, I'll never be the same. We get 30-day surveys back from them, same thing. And it's not me. It's just nature and the information.
Right. And you're just showing them. It's like, give a man a fish, you'll feed him for a day.
Yep.
And try to teach him how to fish, and he'll be able to feed his family, and everybody else he comes into, counter with. So can I ask you, about, your time in the ministry, because I do find it fascinating. So
Sure.
you get, is it licensed? Is it certified? So
Ordained.
Ordained. So you become a pastor. And is it a Baptist church?
Yes.
Okay. And so now you are standing up and having to prepare your sermons on a weekly basis. And I'm sure, you're like, because it's like, okay, someone could read the same passage 8 different types of churches, and they're going to interpret it a different way. And they're going to highlight a certain part of it. And that's what they're going to focus on, and they're going to spin it, and they're going to do that. So when you're preparing your sermons, have you set out to do it differently initially than what you've witnessed others do?
Yeah, I went to seminary with the express idea that I'm doing this different and did. I mean, I would try to come to the Bible. I really didn't write sermons. I would try to approach whatever was happening in my own life. I would try to approach it in that manner. And then I would try to live my life for 7 days through that and then get up and talk about what had happened in the last 7 days. I mean, not exactly, but in theory, that's what I was doing.
So did it make it harder while you were going as a younger person, and the church, being part of the church, was making you feel like something was missing, God had left something out, as those were your words. But now that you are standing up there and you are preaching and you are doing the Lord's work and you're getting other people to try to stay within these lines, was it even harder then?
Well, I never drew lines.
Okay, maybe lines is not the right parameters.
But I knew what you're saying. So I never approached my sermons from behavioral modification standpoint of going, if you do this, God will love you more. I always started with God loves you. Now let's talk about what happens after that.
Yeah.
Which is different than what I grew up with.
Yeah, so I guess maybe it's not the lines, but it's like, did it make it harder for you to be the person you envisioned yourself to be because of the constraints on what is a sin and what you're going to hell for and obviously you were dealing with childhood issues, addiction issues, and as a kid, that made you feel, them telling you this is a sin, you're going to go to hell, but as now you are standing up there relaying whatever message and version you're relaying to your congregation, your audience, was it harder for you to live up to your expectations? Am I coming off, am I making sense?
Yeah, so you're asking me, I think what you're asking me is, was I living in hypocrisy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. According to the way the church would have judged the way I was living, right? But if you were to go back, if you guys left here and you went back and you pulled up the podcast that has all my sermons on it and you listened to however many years are on there, every one of those, y'all would be like, oh my God, yeah, you can hear it. I know exactly what he was doing because I was all about, hey man, don't look at me to be your God. Hey man, listen, if you're looking for me to be your savior, then you're in a very bad position. It was all about, hey man, listen.
I like that approach though.
Yeah, God loves you. I don't, or I would say things like Jesus loves you. The rest of us think you're an asshole. It's like, but.
Oh, I would have loved to attend that. That would have been fun.
When you listen to the direction I was headed spiritually, I was trying to find where I am now. And just couldn't do it because
you were angry.
My theological restraints were keeping me from finding this freedom. But that was stuck in my nervous system. I mean, this whole symbiotic thing that had to happen. But yeah, I was definitely living in hypocrisy because I was a pastor living, 2 different lives. Well, most pastors are, even if they're not running around snorting cocaine off the asses of Russian hookers.
Yes!
I wasn't doing that, by the way.
I still like your analogy.
Which we understand.
Yeah.
But if
it's a great picture. picture in my head though. Like,
if they're doing that, or if they're just skimming a little money off the top, or if they're, harsh with their wife, they abuse their wife verbally when they go home at night, it doesn't matter. They're still living two lives.
Yes.
The life that they present to the church and the life that they actually live, because they have to, because their paycheck is dependent on it.
Yes.
When you're raising two kids off a paycheck that comes from a church, you have to be a performer. And I don't
That's
care what
right.
anybody says. You
Of
have
course.
Right. You have to either be very sneaky about what you're doing. Well, as long as you can get away, but at
Well, I
some
think-
point it's going to catch up.
Always.
Well-
Your real colors will shine.
They do.
And, in defense of, not really in defense of, but I would just say, it's pretty clear also that there's an expectation for those people to be a certain way and not be like a normal person, not be the guy who hangs out and has a beer with his buddies at the bar on Saturday. You'd be surprised to see the pastor there like, what are you doing here? And it's like, but you're there. Like, you showed up at the bar to have a beer with your buddies, but you don't want the pastor to be there, but you want to go listen to the pastor.
Yeah.
So like now the pastor's like your
Role model.
Yeah, you don't own that person. They're there to give you good information, but they're just a normal person. So I think there's unrealistic expectations that the church places upon these people to perform. And maybe it's attractive within your first couple years of service, right?
Sure.
Being like the holy
Being
one,
that
like
guy.
being
You're like,
like
hey, I'm
you're
gonna
a
be
the
there.
father, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're a
yeah.
But
performer.
eventually
The man
you
of the
realize, you realize that it's not authentic.
Do you know what?
And you can't just back out of it because now your family's getting a paycheck. And what else are you going to do? You could always go be a realtor.
Do you know what?
Give me a call.
You know what's funny? Did you ever see the Royal Gemstones?
Oh, the Righteous Gemstones.
The Righteous
I
Gemstones.
absolutely love that show.
Oh
love
my!
it.
How accurate? Obviously that's
the thing
probably
is,
an extreme.
It's to the extremes, but it's extremely accurate.
Did you know what I'm talking about?
No.
The Righteous Gemstones, all-star cast. John Goodman. He's the head of the church.
pastor.
The pastor. His sons, Danny McBride is one of his sons, who's a fill-in pastor, kind of, just
Yeah, associate pastor.
and they're rich. They have their own theme park. They've got these mega churches, and they are the
That's
most
cool.
fucked up family.
Yeah.
And they're covering up murders. It's so fucking funny, but at some level where you know that this is a comedy, at some level you know that it's modeled after some family.
It's the whole theme of that. What I love so much in people, like you watch that, absolutely, I love it. But you can see this dichotomy
Right.
between, what is it they say? Praise be to He. Praise, or the younger or the older son is supposed to say, damn it, everybody shut up so I can pray, damn it.
Right.
Like that dichotomy between, there's this image we have because of who we are, but then there's this entire life going on behind the scenes. 100% true. That's why most pastors' kids go off the rails. My kids turned out great, but if you took a poll across the board, most pastors' kids are off the rails, especially back in the 70s and 80s, because they see two different lives being lived.
and that's why they're fucked up.
And they're
because
like,
of it.
screw it. I'm not going to do that.
Yep.
Well, right, yeah, but they're
just gonna
like,
do what I
they're
wanna
like, you're
do.
a fucking hypocrite. How
Yeah.
are you gonna why am I gonna give you the respect? Why am I gonna listen to you like everybody else does
Yeah.
when I see the real you
Yep.
on a daily basis?
Yeah.
Whether it be abuse or who
Well,
knows?
I think that dichotomy exists for all of us, really, and I think it's a big challenge in self-healing and becoming more aware, and these therapies that we're talking about. A lot of the pain that I deal with is having that feeling like I have to go do business in a certain arena, or I have to go be this person today. I don't want to be. It's not who I really am. It's not where my passions really lie, but it's how I provide for my family, and I'm actually really good at it. So once I get into it, I enjoy it. But not just me, but I see that dichotomy all over the place. And I think that that's where a lot of our substance abuse, overeating, drinking too much comes from, that suffering where we have to go morph into this person that we know we're not. And then the damage that we take when we're in that mode, it seems so unfair but nobody cares. You know what I mean? You're the only one that cares. So I've got to go be this person that I really don't want to be. So there's that level of just damage that's occurring. And then you go out and you just take the damage that the regular world just gives you. You know, I mean, it's all a numbers game out there, which means that it's about failure. You have to go and fail. So I'm going to go out there and fail in an inauthentic way. That's even like 3 or 4 times worse than just being my authentic self and having to face nature anyways, which is based in failure. But at least I can face it as the guy with the bullhorn that's hitting his leg walking towards the moose. You know what I mean? That's an authentic self.
And you're not even talking about going out there and being a bad person as anybody you see. You're just talking about going to work. And going to work.
Yeah,
right.
I'm talking about going to work because you have to pay your bills.
Right, because we're in a system that we need this tool to live and provide.
So then I succeed, I have a big check, I want a steak and a bottle of wine. Or I fail, I lose a big check, I want a steak and a bottle of wine, right? I have a big day, whatever. Oh, I had to go do a good workout, you know? Oh, now I can eat ice cream, right? Well, no, the ice cream was bad for you. And really, was the workout even good for you? What are you doing? Are you just doing something that somebody told you was a good thing for you to do? It may not be. You can spend your time doing things that help you solve these issues, that roll back the prefrontal cortex, that work on the nervous system and help you discover these things within yourself.
I have a friend, we went mountain biking yesterday and just had a blast, man. And we were talking about working out, doing squats, doing heavy weight and pain in our bodies. I'm 52.
Yeah.
And I said, I found that when I'm violent toward my body's violent back toward me.
Thank you, man. Thank you for saying that.
Because I was a CrossFit coach I started CrossFit in 2010 and did
CrossFit is horrible for your body.
That's terrible. And I mean, I've got all kind of injuries, but it's from where I was so violent toward my body. Well, now I swim and I bike. I do a shit ton of yoga, but those things are gentle toward my body, right? I think that even when we get into the working out or all these things we could talk about, the junk food and all that, it still comes down to I'm trying my best to fix something that's stirring up in me.
Yes.
And I'll take guys out in the woods and say, we're going to meditate for 5 minutes. And when I get through, they're like, that was 5 minutes. Felt like 30 minutes. I'm like, yeah, because you don't want to sit with yourself. Your shit starts to stir. And as soon as it stirs, you go, I don't want that. What can I look at my phone? Can I go for a walk? Right. We don't want to deal with what's there.
You don't want to face it.
Don't want to face it because it's scary. It's like a moose standing in the middle of a creek on a, frosty September morning.
Yeah.
It looks terrifying. But I tell people all the time when we avoid the room because every time we open that door, the lion comes at us.
Yeah.
So we slam the door. Now we know we need to go in there. We know we need to face our demons. We know we need to go in that room. But when we start doing the practices, when we start getting in the water, when we start, going to meditation and yoga, and we start learning how our nervous system works, we open that door and realize that's nothing but a cat standing there.
Yeah, it's nothing but a cat. It's false evidence appearing real.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I brought this on the show before. I was telling my son who, has been kind of battling in travel baseball. He suffered a couple of getting hit by a bunch of, kids that didn't have a lot of control. And so this past season, there was this whole thing where he was having trouble. He couldn't stay in the box. Before the ball left the pitcher's hand, it didn't matter if it was a perfect strike. He was already out.
Getting out of the way of the ball. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. But I've used this analogy with him multiple times. It's like the boy who takes the same way, avoids going the shortcut home because when he does, there's a dog that chases his ass. Mm-hmm. And he's so afraid of being bit. And after months and months of going the long way around his head to get to his ass, he's like, fuck it. I am going to stand there and I'm going to walk past the dog. And he does, and he notices the dog doesn't have any teeth.
Yeah.
It's
the same idea.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, it really is. It's a cat. It's like...
It's not a dragon. It's a little gecko.
Yeah, it's a lizard.
Not a gecko.
Yeah,
it's a gecko. Gecko's what the gecko represents.
Gecko. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. It's a fucking turtle. It's a little box turtle. Yeah, man. Fascinating. So are you picky? Do you normally have to turn people away?
We worked a waiting list this spring. This trip that's leaving tomorrow, we actually had one guy sign up this morning. He's like, can I go? I'm like, yeah, I think we had one spot left that we could take.
And do you know what their issues are ahead of time? So you're kind of prepping yourself of how you're going to... do you have a different approach with a different person? I mean, I know you're going to probably put them through the same measures, right? You're going to introduce them and teach them and show them the same, things. But sometimes is your approach, depending on their trauma, like a little different?
Yeah, usually addicts, we're just very programmatic about it. And then we're not programmatic about anything, but I should say pragmatic. So the tire trip overall is very loose. They're not restrained. Like, they can go do whatever they want to. They can go fishing, they go hang out, go for a day hike, hang and talk to their buddy. But you do find they create this community. But we do teach the breathing and the yoga and the cold water we always get in the creek. And so that's for the addicts. It's like, hey, we're going to give you these tools to leave here with. But when we take dads out that lost kids, or when we take a group of dads of adopted kids out, or what, those are usually just much more, hey, man, I really don't. We're just going to sit around a campfire and talk. And if you're interested in hearing about the central nervous system, I'm going to do the work. Like, at some point, I'm getting in the creek. And usually they fall in. And then we have a time of teaching. But yeah, I would say that it's a little bit more tailored. Some of the trips are with the accountability courts. So these guys are literally just coming out of jail. They're in accountability court. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but they have to call in at 5 a.m. And so they get released to go with us. And so those trips are a little bit more structured. But even then, it's like we're just 8 guys going out into the woods.
Very cool.
Yep.
What's the craziest thing that's ever happened? Is there anything like, one of these things, like someone got run over by a moose? So I don't know, just something like completely out there. Like, that's one for the record books. I've never seen that happen before. I mean, is there anything that stands out? And it doesn't have to be bad. It could be good too. It's funny.
I guess so. No, not really. I guess stands out in the bears in the tree on the elk carcass.
That's pretty good.
That was pretty interesting. But the most moving story, I guess, outside of the dad, sending me those messages back. We were on a trip back in April, I think it was. We go in on Friday. We hike to this area. We set up camp. We stay there Friday night. We get up Saturday morning. We hike up to this field up on top of the mountains. And I get everybody around and I teach them the holotropic breathing, and then I teach them meditation. So we do 3 rounds of breathing. We do 12 minutes of meditation, 12 minutes, because that's where the science takes us, right? And so this kid's sitting across, this sweetest kid, man. He's just a great kid. He's just, spent 13 years shooting heroin. He told me he was doing meth to wake up and heroin to go to bed,
Wow.
And so he's sitting across from me, and we come out of meditation. I just open my eyes, and tears are running down his face and dripping off his chin. He opens his eyes. He looked at me. He said, "Why has nobody ever taught me this?" He said, "I've never he said, if I knew I could have this, I would never touch another drug in my life." So, yeah, man, that was really, oh, yeah, so cool.
Wow.
Yeah. And seeing people get in the cold water. I took a guy who had been actually shooting meth in his veins 2 weeks before he went, and put him in the cold water and watch his nervous system come to life. Man, there for a minute, I thought he was about to have a panic attack. And then I got him to calm down, and
like where you get in that cold water and almost takes your breath away. Like your body has to adapt to it, and it tries to
He was screaming. I mean, he was screaming, but he stayed in, to his credit. And at first I started laughing, and then I'm like, oh shit, wait a minute, like he's about to have a panic attack. And so talked him through it, got him calmed down, and he just lays back and he goes, "My God, the sky looks blue." I'm like, "Yeah, man, that's called dimethyltryptamine, And he said, "Why does everything look so much more clear?" I said, "Yeah, man, your body loves this, right? You're getting high on your own supply," to quote Wim Hof.
That's right. And everybody's holding.
Yeah.
Everybody's holding.
And we
should make a song, Everybody's Holding.
I haven't talked to him in a while, but last time I spoke to him, he had linked together months of sobriety with cold water. So that's awesome. Pretty cool story, yeah.
Well, plug the website again, Jason Lisle. We thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
And you can find, people can find you, and can they sign up from the website at
recoveryadventures.org, hit upcoming expeditions, and there should be a way to sign up.
We will link to everything you on our episode description. And, man, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
fascinating.
Yeah.
And thank you for the work that you do, because
it's amazing.
It's very inspiring, but I think it really should motivate us all. We all have trauma to some level.
Sure.
Some more extreme than others. We've all seen fucked up shit. And if you're alive on this earth, you're going to have some fucked up shit happen to you. Yep. People around you are going to die. You're going to lose pets, everything else you care about, health, all that stuff. And, I think we need to stay grounded, centered, and really, like you said, getting our nervous system and, everything in check. And
a lot of times too, man, I think that people are intimidated by other people's stories, like obviously I can say, oh, well, I was a combat veteran, you know, and
I have a big dick.
Yeah,
so
and he
that
says,
sucks
like,
or something.
you know, and he could say, well, I was adopted, and you know, some people don't really know. And some people, maybe they don't have some banner reason.
Label,
you know, because they've had a pretty good life ultimately, but something's going on and they just don't really know what it is. It could be anything. And just because some people may have a title, a banner that they can fly to say, oh, you know, I'm a combat veteran or something like that, that doesn't make their trauma any more or less important than yours is, because you can't process something that someone else. I mean, I know guys that would prefer to live in the combat zone. I mean, that's where they're most happy, right? So we all experience life through a different lens. And I would encourage anybody to look into cold water therapy, look into these practices that we've discussed today, because, you know, it can help significantly improve
Can I
your
hop
life.
in there with one more thing?
yeah.
real quick?
And one question: what can it hurt by trying?
Yeah.
like you've got nothing
to lose. It's free.
Nothing. Yeah, nothing to
Until you
lose.
spend $5,000 on a cold water plunge, but we'll get to that
Yeah.
later.
Oh, I've got cold water plunges at the house. They're not $5,000.
Are they not?
No, $100.
$100, baby.
$19.99. Actually, Bert this morning was just telling me he just ordered one.
No,
That's awesome.
He ordered, it's like a barrel or something.
Yeah,
And
man.
He said he just ordered one. He said you fill it with ice and you can use it for days or something.
Yeah, I've got we have some. There's the Freeology podcast is a podcast, but then Freeology also produces mindful content. So I'm teaching a workshop in Cleveland coming up in June. But we ordered 10 ice baths, and they had the Freeology logo on the side, so it's pretty cool. Yeah,
We need to order 2, and we need to do a podcast
In the ice bath.
in the ice bath.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. One thing I want to add real quick, and to your point, the worst thing that ever happened to you is the worst thing that ever happened to you.
That's right.
And
that's what I
important
meant.
to remember, yeah. And the second thing I do want to say before we get off here, because I know we kind of joked about psilocybin, DMT, and a little bit about ayahuasca. Don't do that stuff without some pre-work, or without some help, because there's
100%.
people who go into straight psychosis and never come out of it
right.
because of that stuff. So I just wanted to throw that in there. If anybody decides you think that's your path, don't do it with your buddy sitting next to you going, hey, man, let's eat these mushrooms. Make sure that you've done the pre-work and you kind of know what rooms you're going into when you get in
Yeah,
there.
it'd be like a bad LSD trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've had one of those, and they're not fucking fun.
You cannot come back from that, right? Yes.
And LSD too. I've known people that have taken LSD and were never fucking the same. Like they were out there. Like I don't know what the fuck happened, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oof. All right, thanks for listening to the Man Fuse podcast. Join the show by hitting us up at manfuse.com, 770-744-5227. Thank you so much, Jason.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Peace and love. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, man.